Well, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Meet the Author. Today, I have Lexi Blake here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
I'm so excited that you can make it here today. So, kind of before we start jumping into all these questions, I usually like to start off with just a nice and easy icebreaker question. So, I've asked this one before, but I feel like it's just a good one to kind of figure out someone which side they're on. Are you a chocolate or a vanilla girl?
Okay, well, this is going to shock the hell out of a lot of people because I do not write this way. I actually prefer vanilla.
Vanilla, okay. I'm
Flavor
personally.
wise, life wise, I would be more on the chocolate side. Or
That's
or like the rainbow sherbet side. Yeah.
That's incredible. I think I'm more vanilla side because even when it comes to chocolate, I like white chocolate. So I think that explains everything about
I
me.
I literally put vanilla in everything.
That's incredible. Love that so much. Well, thank you again so much for being on here today. Kind of just to start off with, if people maybe have not picked up any of your books before or been introduced to you, just kind of start us off with who is Lexi Blake? Just a few things about yourself that maybe people don't know.
I have written over 100 books, which is crazy. I've been a writer all my life, but I didn't start publishing until I was around 40. Um, and I took my time with it then. I had written a whole lot of books before then. I write romance. I love romance. Pretty much anything I write has romance in it. I've written across the genre. Like I've written everything from romantic suspensions, which is probably what I'm best known for, to urban fantasy. I've written contemporary, and now the book we're talking about today is definitely contemporary with a lot of women's fiction in it.
That's awesome. And so you said you've written over 100 books and everything. How was it deciding to kind of pick this series? What made you want to start writing this specific series that we're talking about today with? I have start us up right here. What made you decide, okay, like, you know what? This is what I'm going to focus on for, a little bit of time and everything.
Well, I really kind of had it in my head that I wanted to write something different. Like I said, I'm known for pretty heavy romantic suspense. I wanted something a little lighter. Now, of course, when I get into it, just because you don't shoot someone doesn't mean that it's not kind of heavy. So I think it's pretty emotional. This story is pretty emotionally heavy. I wanted to write something about what it's like to be a woman in the world that we live in today, but from three different perspectives and really three different, what would you call it, industries in a way. So the first one is about a woman in tech specifically. Um, I liked that idea. I almost say she's the not evil Elizabeth Holmes. The she's like the it's kind of taken from that story, but she did nothing wrong where Elizabeth Holmes is in jail. And, you know, um, I liked the idea of what would happen to a woman who basically had the same thing happen that a lot of men have had happen. Men tend to fall up, women tend to fall back. So how would a younger woman handle that? Along with, and she's surrounded by women, pretty much. The men in the book are definitely the romantic partners of, rather than the foundation of the book. The foundation of the book of all three of these are women.
Yeah, I think that was, when I was going through and reading this, something that I really, there's the romance in it, but that's what I really liked about it actually is it's not a romance heavy book that like a lot of the themes in here is, especially with Ivy, is that she's like finding herself again and like figuring things out and going back from, being at the bottom to figuring to get back up there. And there's still romance in there, but that's not like the main theme, it felt like. And I
Mhm.
thought that it was really well done that you put it in a way that you're not focusing like on the man kind of coming in and saving her, because
Oh,
she
he does
saves
not.
herself.
Yeah, she saves herself. He adds to her life. And that's what she realizes, is that she needs to find someone who adds to her life, who brings out parts of her that are strong and resilient. And I think he really does that.
Yes, I like really enjoyed the book, and I'm excited to see kind of the little friend group, how everything just goes about. As a person who I'm in the STEM field, it's nice to see people who are depicting strong, capable women, because even my field as a meteorologist, it's predominantly men. And
Yeah.
so it's nice to read a book where, you're seeing a female perspective, but like how it's capable and strong and empowering. And I think you did that really well. For people who maybe have not picked up this book just yet, kind of give an overarching synopsis maybe of what people can expect going into start us up.
So it's about Ivy. She is kind of a wunderkind of the tech world. She has a lot of really great ideas. She ends up meeting, as so many people in the tech world do. You need somebody who can help you. You can't. Most of us don't just start in our garage, and even the ones who start in their garage find someone who helped them get out of their garage. So she meets a woman named Cece, who kind of mentors her. She ends up going out on her own, building this big business, and it falls apart. So she's come back to New York, where she's moved back in with her mom. She's right back in her old room with her NSYNC posters and Green Day posters, and wondering how she's going to move back up. And she meets Heath, who has a great idea that she thinks she can kind of shepherd through. And so that's kind of where the romance comes in, because he's also very attractive, and they kind of spark off each other from this friendship. But in the middle of all of this, she has to really come to terms with the three women in her life. Her mother, Cece, her mentor, and the new kind of mentor in her life, Heath's grandmother, who starts to have a very big impact on her. And she deals with her friends, who she's been kind of estranged from a little while. So it's really about her finding herself again. And that's kind of the book. But I think it's kind of comes from a fun standpoint. Cece is one of my favorite characters I've ever written. Cece's who I want to be when I grow up.
That's awesome. I was actually one of my questions is later on, but we can go ahead and jump into it now. Is if you have a favorite or a few favorite characters have you ever written? So Cece, you said is obviously one of them. Do you have maybe a few others that kind of fall under that umbrella?
I've got a couple over the series. I'm probably best known for writing a character named Ian Taggart, who's been in he's in a series I write called Masters and Mercenaries. He is based on my husband, who is like, there's no tact. He tells things like they are. He's open. Sarcasm is his love language. And he's this big grizzled, like 6'5" ex-Green Beret, who inside has the heart of a grandma who just wants all of his kids to get married. Like, I love the dichotomy of this big grizzled guy who he was a dangerous operative, but there's really softness on the inside. And that comes through with Cece too. She's very hard on the outside, but there's a lot of depth to her once you crack that surface.
That's awesome. And I think those are probably the best characters. The ones that people probably connect with the most are the ones that, they're all the different layers, because obviously, like, that's normal life. That's
Yeah.
normal people, that we can seem some way on the surface, but we either have things going on the inside or, different things. So it's awesome when people are able to write those real life characters that you can connect yourself to and see yourself in and things like that. So I have to ask another question since we're already on this topic. Do you have a favorite book? I know that's like asking authors a lot of times to pick children, especially when you have over 100, but do you have maybe a few that like stick out that like, okay, I had the best time writing this one, or like I love the story the most,
Yes.
or something like that?
I have some that I associate with joy. And I have some that I associate with like not so great things, but I love the books because they help me get through it. I oftentimes will find, even when I'm going into a book and I've got a plot and I've written out the plot without thinking about, these are characters, these are things that happen to other people. And what's happening in my own life bleeds through. That happened with this, with Start Us Up, that I work in an industry where it is dominated by women, and yet I still feel a lot of the pressure that other people, that other women in other fields do, because I'll sit down on a panel, and if there's an author who's male on the panel, they tend to dominate the conversation. So some of that frustration from me came through in this book, and that was very healing in a lot of ways. My favorite book I've ever written is probably a book called oh my gosh. See, and now my brain, I've got 100 books. It's Boomer's book. It was 1,001 Dark Nights book, and it was Delighted. Yes. It was just a very happy book. It was a book that I realized I'd been coming out of a long period of grief because my mom died.
Mm-hmm.
And I was coming out of it finally after many years. And there was just that was just a very joyous book to write.
That's awesome. And I think that's really important. You know, I just like that question too. You're great, obviously, as an interviewer because you were taking the questions right out of it and just like giving them to me. And I love that. So you said that you like to put a lot of things, or necessarily maybe not even intentionally, but things from your real life kind of bleed into your stories. So do you find yourself often, like, again, you've a lot of books, do you pull things from around your life to purposely put into the story sometime? Or do you feel like it just naturally happens, like characters that you start to include that like your husband, you know, from people in real life, or yourself maybe that you've written into a character?
Yeah, I feel like those things, like I will meet people who are definitely characters. They are just like, I've got this character, a long standing, I tend to write longer running series. So I have like secondary characters that run through a lot. I met a friend. I've known him for probably 25 years. He is very much a conspiracy theorist, old school, has weapons all over his house just in case. I wrote him into a series called Nights in Bliss, Colorado as my crazy conspiracy theorist, because there's nothing malicious or anything. He's a loving, beautiful man, but he's very, very quirky. Very quirky. So he ended up in that one. There are a lot of people. I take a lot from the people around me. When I'm consciously doing it, I think I am pulling them in because of the things I love about them. When I'm unconsciously doing it, I tend to be working out something in my own emotional state. Like sometimes my husband will read a book and he'll be like, "Oh, hey babe, maybe we should talk about this because I'm pretty sure this was us." So yeah, my husband would tell you, he can tell you, he knows how I feel because when he proofs a book.
Does he proof all of your books? Do you always have him read a book after?
All of them. He's read everything I've ever written.
That's awesome. My boyfriend won't read a book unless there's pictures in it, so it's really awesome. You have someone who loves that, what you do, and loves to read your work and everything. That's incredible. Well, I have to ask with this book again, kind of going back to Start Us Up, since that's, you know, what I want to focus on today. With this book, it is very much like tech heavy and like all the things that are happening with that industry. How did you go about doing research or kind of figuring out how you wanted to put this in here in a way that it made sense to a lot of people? And I think for people who are in that industry, that they were like, hey, you know, like this is this represents us.
My husband worked in the industry for decades before. He retired. He was in his 40s. He retired when basically we decided that me taking the kids to and from school was taking away from my writing time. And at the time I was making more than he was. So he came home and we switched roles. But before that, he worked for a very long time in tech, and he worked for a lot of startups. And he ended up working at just below sea level. So I got to see a lot of what goes on in not just tech companies, but especially in startup tech companies. And then my best friend, who's now my assistant, and she kind of runs a lot of the business. She used to work with angel investors.
Okay.
So I got a lot from that. And then we have a friend who is still in the industry who I talk to a lot about specifically the intricacies of writing and teaching the AI and that kind of stuff. And I've said many times, if I got it wrong, it's totally his fault. He did it.
That's awesome. So for maybe like some of the other books in this series, because I know obviously you're going to expand and
Mhm.
there's more things that you're focusing on. How do you go about to like that writing process and the research, or just any? It doesn't have to necessarily be this series, but like any book, if you're doing something that's maybe a little bit different for you, or you don't have those connections, how do you go about deciding? Okay, this is how I want to go about and research this.
Well, look, the internet has everything. Anything you could possibly want, it is out there. Um, you ask a lot of questions. Usually, you find somebody who you can talk to, and in your vast network of people that you get to know as an author, somebody's going to know someone who wants to talk about what they do. The next book in the series is actually it's going to be basically set around a show that's somewhat like The Bachelor. And so I've talked to some TV people. We're going to see how much of the lingo I can get right, hopefully. But the good, hey, everybody's on strike right now, so they're willing to talk.
That's very beneficial. You just have to make sure that you use the words going on this journey to
Oh
get
yeah,
there.
no. Well, see now, girl, I got that one down. I got just writing the Bachelor part. That comes from watching 18 seasons of The Bachelor. I'm good on that one. It's the stuff behind the scenes that I'm gonna need a little. Yeah, no, we need the journey, and they need to be here for the right reasons.
Right reasons,
That
yes.
would be talked about very
Oh,
much.
love that. I love that so much. And you can even maybe pull, I feel like some of the other shows out there now too. It's like I mean, there's so many even like Netflix that you have like these dating reality shows that you could just start pulling all the because they all have they're not allowed to say, the experiment or this,
Oh no,
life
my favorite one lately has been Love Is Blind.
the
Love Is Blind.
experiment.
Oh yeah,
That one's a good one too.
yeah.
Well, I
So, and then the third book will be set in almost HGTV world, which I also know pretty well. So
That's awesome. That's
yeah.
really, really exciting. So what can we talk about? Maybe give people a little bit teasers or kind of what information do you have about these? I know obviously Start Us Up just came out on August 8th today. So it's like what people are obviously talking about. But as readers, you fly through a book like this in a couple of days and you're like, all right, what's coming next? Can you kind of give us a few little sneak peeks of what we have down the line?
Yeah, so we're introduced to the three friends. They've been friends since grade school, really. And I love to write about those very long female friendships because I've had them myself, and they can be as deep and involved as any romance, any marriage. These really long term friendships, and they're at a point in their life where they're all changing and growing, and it can sometimes be difficult to stay together, but they very much want to. So there's a conscious effort while all these things are going to still tend to their friendships. Then so you meet Ivy, Annika, and Harper. Um, and obviously this is Ivy's book. The next one will be Annika's book. Annika is a production assistant. And there's some little drama in the first book where Harper, who took over her father's construction company, she's worried because it feels like Annika has taken a step down in her career. But what she doesn't understand is there's a lot going on behind the scenes. Basically, Annika has been asked by her producer boss to go in to this bachelor-like setting, which she doesn't normally do, work as a production assistant, and check out the director who they think could be doing some shady stuff. But because it's The Bachelor, but it's basically I can't even remember what I called it. Like basically, he is the king of a small European country, and he is going to pick a bride this way, which he is not happy about. He's there's a lot going on back there, but she ends up. One of the girls was not there for the right reasons. They find out they still need a girl. He says, "I'll pick her," and so she thinks she's going to be let go that first night. She does not. She ends up having to go through the whole process. It's going to be fun.
That sounds incredible. It sounds like a real life, The Bachelor, but then also I don't know if like the fantasy book. It reminds me, what is it? I'm blanking on it. It's like The Selection or something. It's like a mixture of all these
Oh no, I know. Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
sounds like a fun mixture of all those things. For that, can't wait. Do you know? publication wise? Do you think maybe it'll be something later on this year?
Yeah, it's May of 2024.
Oh, so exciting. Can't wait. And then the third book, you said you have any little things yet with that, or just kind of an overarching
Yeah,
like
I know the basic plot line for it. So Harper has bought the very mansion that they kind of that opens the whole series. They're touring this old school Gilded Age mansion, and they're all like, "This is success. This is what we want." Well, Harper's actually bought that, and she's kind of in over her head with it. She's trying to renovate it, and the way that Annika comes in and basically says, "Well, I can get you money for it. We just have to film all of it. It's going to be an HGTV show." But they bring in a designer, and the designer, and she's the construction, he's the designer, and they butt heads. So
that's really fun. That's exciting. So I'm assuming you're probably, plotting and doing a little bit of, writing on these books, obviously. How do you like to, well, first and foremost, I'll start off. I like to ask a lot of authors this because once I figured out this lingo, I just like to ask the question because I think it sounds fun. But do you find yourself more on the plotting side or the pantsing side when it comes to writing your books?
I would say I'm a pantser. So
Okay.
I actually like to plot. I like to have these three touchstones: the beginning, this middle turning point, and the end. But then I also like to discover some stuff organically as I'm going through. I don't break it out into like chapters like a
Okay.
lot of people do. Although I think that is the easiest way to go. If you can do it, like write it all out. I'm friends with Mary Carr, who writes out. I mean, she has this outline. She knows what's happening in every chapter. I'm like, I want to do that. I want to be where you are. It's just not. If I try to, then the characters flip me off and go their own way. And yeah, it's a process. Like The Bachelor, it's a process. Got to trust my own process.
Gotta trust my own process. Gotta accept
Right.
my own roses. Gotta know
And
when to.
yes, at some point in time, I'll find myself in a fantasy room somewhere. We don't know what'll happen.
That's awesome. Well, when you're writing, do you prefer to write at home? Most of the people that I've asked have said that they prefer to write at home, but I actually have a few that say that they like to go to like coffee shops or like writer vacations. Where do you find it's easiest for you to
There
kind
are people there. No, this is it. This is my home, my writing home. And I'm very I found I'm very particular about it. I just went on vacation. I actually did okay writing while I was on vacation. It was a vacation. We were at a cabin in Colorado where my husband grew up in Colorado. Um, my desk broke while I was gone, and the freak out I had at coming home to not my desk. We had to go to IKEA and buy the exact same desk.
kind
The exact same desk.
So you like things a certain way.
I do. I never used to be that. I used to love change. I wanted change. Now I'm like, no, everything needs to be the same. Mm.
That's awesome. That's hilarious. Well, okay, so kind of going more into this story and everything, what is maybe a favorite scene or something without kind of giving away spoilers, obviously, for people if they're just like about to pick up this book, but what's maybe your favorite scene or like quote or something that was a moment for Stardust Up that you were like, you know what? I'm excited about that. Like this was fun to write.
I love the scene where Cece, you first meet Cece. Basically, Ivy has been kind of dodging her old mentor because she's ashamed. And Cece's like, no, you will come to this party. She's having a big party for all these angel investors. She's like, you will come. She realizes her ex-boyfriend, the one who the one who ran her company into the ground,
Mm-hmm.
is going to be there. She ends up meeting with Heath that day, and they she brings him along because she's going to introduce him to these investors. And as they're standing there, Cece makes this grand entrance along with her little tiny dog. And this dog is the queen of the world. Lady Buttercup is like Cece just kind of force the dog off whenever she needs to, and this some little boy coder is going to end up holding this dog, going, "What am I doing?" So that's probably my favorite scene.
Do you think that maybe you took some of your own dogs and like your love for them and you were like, all right, we're gonna baby this dog in here and this is my inspiration for it?
Oh yes. Yeah, it's funny. There's usually like at least one scene in a book that everybody will be like, "Yes, Lexi, we know you love dogs. We know."
That would be my problem if I ever, which I'm not that creative, so I wouldn't be able to be an author. But if I ever was like, okay, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna write a book, it would have to have like an Australian, a shepherd or something, because that's like my first dog, my first love is my Aussies. So I'd have to.
I have figured out that I just need, because I was like, no, my kids are older. My youngest is 15. They don't need me anymore. I just love dogs. And I realized, no, they're toddlers. I just always have to have like these weird toddlers following me around everywhere. I also feel a little sometimes with the three of them, like they run ahead of me and herald wherever I go. So it feels like I'm like the mother of dogs. Like, Khaleesi from House of from Game of Thrones. She had dragons. I have little tiny fat dogs.
They're like, come on, mom, we're going in here. We're moving into this room.
It's really not as regal as it sounds.
That's awesome. Well, kind of getting towards the end of the interview here, where can people find Start Us Up right now that it's officially out there? You can order it. Where can people not only get it or listen to it, those kind of things? And then after that, where can people connect with you easiest if they're like, all right, I love this and I want to be connected to all things like Lexi Blake?
It's pretty much on every e-retailer there is. Apple, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Kobo, Google, and it's an audio on Audible and iTunes, with a narrator I've worked with for a really long time, who I love, named Kitty Bang. She does a fabulous job with it. If you want to find me, I'm all over most socials, like not the socials that like 50-year-olds don't know about. Like there are some that my children use that I don't know how to use that, but like old people, I'm on Facebook. I've got a group on Facebook called Lexi's Literary Universe, where it's really fun group where we talk about the books, play trivia games. I'm on there all the time. I'm also on Instagram, TikTok, whatever they're calling Twitter these days. We don't know.
We gave up on that one a while ago.
We don't know. It's X. I
woke up one morning and my phone had changed over to the Lex icon, and I was like, I missed the bird.
Yes, that's right. The bird was really cute. I don't know what the X is.
I gave up on Twitter. If I didn't have to use it for work, I would have just like deleted it a long time ago. It's unfortunate.
See, that's the tech world, though. That's the tech world. Things change fast.
I feel like, yeah, things are. I'm just always trying to catch up. For someone, a little bit younger, I'd say, in my early 20s, I should be good at technology, and that is one of my things that I just like am not good at. I'm constantly having to like ask people, hey, like even with TikTok and other stuff, I'm like, how do I do this? How do I start doing that? Like, what are all these things? And people are like, you should know how to do this, and I really should.
Oh no, my assistant writes down, this is how you're going to log on. Yeah, I still have instructions on. It's still like when they do Instagram lives, we still don't know. There's still this mystery. Will she make it on? Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much again today for coming on here. Is there anything that I didn't ask that maybe you want to talk about, mention with this book, this new series, your other series, anything that maybe we didn't touch on that you want readers to know?
No, I'm just really excited that it's out in the world these days.
Thank you. I thought it was great. Again, I really enjoyed the fact that it has those like romantic themes, but it's not like, again, she saves herself and it's very much focused, like you said, it's more like women's fiction. And I liked that aspect of it, that you can really see like the power of being a strong woman and being able to bring yourself out of situations. So I really enjoyed this book. I know lots of people are really going to enjoy this book, and I just really appreciate you taking the time to jump in here and talk with me today.
Thank you. And I appreciate being here.
Yes. And you guys make sure that you are saying subscribe to everything that is happening here at Michaela's Book Nook and for the next author interview, reviews, and more. And until next time, thanks, guys.
Thank you.